Good evening and welcome to SVG-TV News and Sports. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. 4 suspects, including a former constable of the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force, charged with the missing guns and ammunitions from the armory at the Georgetown Police Station, appeared before Chief Magistrate Ration Brown today at the Serious Offences Court in Kingstown. The former police officer, 25-year-old Zachary Latham of Newgrounds, who was attached to the Georgetown Police Station, pleaded not guilty to 8 charges. He was charged for official corruption, burglary, sale of firearms and ammunitions, possession of firearms and ammunitions, possession of a prohibited weapon, and possession of criminal property. He was remanded to Her Majesty's Prison. Myron Samuel, a 28-year-old of Layu, was charged with possession of firearm, possession of ammunitions, and handling of stolen goods. He also pleaded not guilty and was granted bail in the sum of 20,000 EC dollars with one surety to report to the Layu police station on Mondays between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Avi King, a 28-year-old laborer of diamonds who was slapped with 7 charges, pleaded guilty to 6. Mishak Dublin, a 26-year-old unemployed, also of diamonds, pleaded guilty to the 6 charges laid against him, which include possession of criminal property, possession of firearms without license, ammunitions, prohibited weapons, sale of ammunition, and sale of firearms without a dealer's license. King and Dublin were denied bail and were remanded to Her Majesty's Prison. In the investigator's submission to the court, it was noted that a number of ammunitions and 1 firearm are still missing. The arrest of the 4 suspects came 15 days after Commissioner of Police Colin John directed that an investigation be launched into the disappearance of a quantity of firearms and ammunitions from the armory at the Georgetown Police Station. The investigation was led by the Major Crimes Unit of the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force. Lead scientist monitoring La Soufrière volcano has confirmed that there was an increase in seismic activity over the weekend. Lloyd Lynch said at one point there were 40 earthquakes recorded. However, they have seen a decrease within the last 24 hours.
A slight uptick in the activity moving into the weekend, which was probably attributed to the high levels of precipitation, but things seems to be settling back down. In terms of numbers, you recall we were reporting just below 10, sometimes 10, 12 small earthquakes per day. During the precipitation, we jumped up to about 40, 2 consecutive days. Over the last 24 hours, there were 25. So it seems like things have bumped up, and with less precipitation, it has settled back. It's settling back down.
The scientist said there is nothing much for people to worry about, explaining that it is usually a normal occurrence during heavy rainfalls.
Gas measurements were taken on Friday, and we got 472 tons per day. So that's also within the ballpark of what we have been reporting. No lahars were reported. We didn't have any lahar signals on the weekend.
The lead monitoring scientist said that there were no lahars or mud flows recorded and that the gas measurements remain over 400 tons.
It's all shallow stuff happening in the what we call the hydrothermal, the upper levels where the water table interacts with the hotter shallow bodies. Within the volcano, you have shallow magma storage regions. So that's molten rock. But the molten rock also heats up the rocks above it. And when you have precipitation, the water from the rainfall seeps down through the earth and in fact goes down, it percolates down and comes out as springs further down the hill.
The SVG Met Services said it continues to monitor the progress of a strong tropical wave along 45 degrees west or approximately 900 miles east-southeast of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Presently, the wave is said to be moving westward to west-northwestward around 15 miles per hour and producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. The SVG Met Services said some development of this disturbance will be possible during the next couple of days before upper-level winds become less conducive for further organization by Thursday. According to the Met Services, regardless of the development, activity ahead of the wave should begin to affect the islands by late Wednesday with moderate to heavy showers accompanied by thunderstorms and gusty winds. It was also noted that due to expected rainfall accumulations and the saturated nature of the soils from recent rainfall events, flash flood watches or warnings may be issued during the upcoming days. All residents are advised to keep informed and pay close attention to information being issued by the SVG Met Services. As a number of residents from the orange and red zones begin to resettle in their communities since the explosive eruption of La Soufrière volcano just over 2 months ago, Education Administrator Ronnie Daniel has suggested that as part of the rebuilding process, a national conversation should be held, not only looking at issues of development, but how to rebuild. On SVG-TV's Viewpoint program on Sunday, Daniel shared ways in which the country and citizens can get their minds and hearts ready to rebuild mentally, spiritually, and creatively.
Impression to be given that we are saying that everything is nice and dandy and so on, because that's not what we are saying. I think what we, at least from my own vantage point, we are acknowledging that our society, our country has gone through tremendous strain over the last year, and the eruption has compounded that. Another hazard in a pandemic. We're in the hurricane season, we're still fighting dengue to some extent.
Daniel said through the different challenges which the country has and continues to face, the people have always been resilient. However, his only concern is that if things are not properly managed, we can become a beggy society.
Resilient people, if you go back 200 years, 300 years, you will see the history is there. It's hidden, but it is there. So my concern is that I don't want us to, and Rev raised the point, and I agree with him to an extent, that we are, if we are not careful, we can become a beggy society, or gimme society, and that is, we are saying we don't want to go down that road, but we must acknowledge that there are persons in our society who have felt the impact more than others, and we have to show some compassion. We have to do what is necessary to help them to get back on their feet. There's a distinction between that and creating a beggy society. And I think Rev made that clear.
Psychologist attached to the SVG Community College, Andrea Games Mohez, who was also a panelist on the program, said that the word starting over usually raises anxiety in persons. However, she advised those affected by the volcanic eruption not to focus on starting over, but on rebuilding, which is continuing the journey.
It's all around us. It's in the lessons that we learned, it's in the stories. And one thing that we sometimes miss the mark is we tell the stories, but we don't create any action with it. So one of my advice is to look at creating the structures, to take those stories apart and comprehend what is happening. If somebody is opposing against, what does this mean? Why is this happening? And really reflect on what message do we want to send out, not only in our country, but to the world. What kind of nation in our 40s going into our 50s, what kind of nation do we want to mature and become? The second thing is to look at a progressive perspective, where we're not just creating critical thinking, but we're creating creative thinking, and we're looking at reflective thinking. And creative thinking is taking those stories, taking the reflection, and making something out of it.
Superintendent Minister of the Kingston Chateaubriand Circuit of the Methodist Church, Reverend Adolph Davis, said as part of moving forward, residents must reflect on the type of society St. Vincent and the Grenadines was before the volcanic eruption and identify the weaknesses and strengths in order to rebuild stronger.
Is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, has St. Vincent and the Grenadines been the kind of nation we want it to be? And I'm not asking us to ask the question simply for the sake of complain, lament, beat up. I'm asking us to consider the question from a very mature, forward-looking kind of a way. In other words, to have a responsible, honest engagement on what we have become as a nation. And in doing that, know that we're doing that not simply to blame, point fingers, because we know it doesn't help us, especially when everything becomes political, and so one side blames the other, and the other side blames the other, and we don't get anywhere with that. But to have an honest conversation about what we have become, and had that conversation, ask ourselves, has COVID and suffering given us a chance to reset, to almost start over again?
The Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries and Rural Transformation received 4 fishing vessels brought in as part of the fleet expansion program. Speaking at a brief handing over ceremony, Minister Soboto Caesar said along with the need for upgrade, the government has also recognized that there is a big increase in the demand for fish and fish products.
We have a market currently with several exporters, and we are well aware that rainforest seafoods has demanded $20 million worth of fish. We know that the company in Beckway Seafoods, that they export also to Miami and also to Asia. And Mark Jacobs is a significant exporter as well. So we are in a situation here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines where there is a big opportunity in fisheries for all stakeholders, for everybody. The fisherman who is out there in need of a new boat, there are persons who want to get into fishing. We are here to announce that the boats have arrived.
The Minister Caesar thanked Ken Delisha, a Vincentian-born who is now living in Miami, for the public-private partnership with the government to ensure that the boats get to SVG to be made available to fisher folk.
I want to especially thank Mr. Ken Delisha, Vincentian from Cedars, living in Miami, and he's here with us. He has gone into a public-private partnership with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to ensure that boats are made available for the fishermen in the country. And there are many other persons who will be assisting in ensuring that the opportunity.
The Agriculture and Fisheries Minister said that fishermen and persons interested in the fishing business will get the opportunity to come to the Fisheries Division to discuss how to get one of the fishing vessels.
So if you're a fisherman out there, if you are not into fishing as yet and you want to get into fishing, we know in St. Vincent and the Grenadines there are hundreds of young persons who want to start up a business. Fishing is big money all over the world, and now we have the Argyle International Airport. We can fly fish products and other marine products all over the world, direct flights from St. Vincent and the Grenadines to Miami. This is your opportunity to start up your own business. Come discuss with the Fisheries Division, speak to the persons in the Ministry of Agriculture, you can speak to the Permanent Secretary, and Ken we'll have an agent here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to address the issue of giving you that startup that you need.
Meanwhile, payments to registered farmers under the Lasso Frere Volcanic Eruption Income Support Program will be made throughout the country from Wednesday, June 23rd to Wednesday, June 30th. The Ministry of Agriculture said the payments will be made in alphabetical order according to the first letter of the surname. A to E starting this Wednesday, F to J on Thursday, K to O on Friday, P to U on Monday, June 28th, V to Z on Tuesday, June 29th, and Wednesday, June 30th for persons who miss the scheduled payment dates. Payment for those in the northern and southern Grenadines are expected to be made in Bequia and Union Island on Wednesday, June 30th. The ministry said payments will commence at 10 a.m. and end at 2 p.m. on the listed dates from Wednesday, June 23rd to Wednesday, June 30th. Fishers affected in the constituencies of North Windward, North Central Windward, and North Leeward are also requested to visit the same listed locations during the scheduled dates for payments. It was also noted a COVID-19 information help desk will be present at each payment station for persons seeking additional information or who may wish to make appointments for their COVID-19 vaccinations. 10 families displaced by the April eruptions of Lasso Frere volcano have received assistance from local agribusiness cluster Vinci Plus Inc. The cluster has distributed foodstuff and personal care supplies to the families, all of whom are displaced from Fitzhugh, Layou, Georgetown, and Owia. According to Vinci Plus President Simon Backus, the explosive eruption of the volcano has caused many citizens major discomfort, especially those in the red and orange zones, and among them are agribusiness operators, including members of Vinci Class. Backus said during a round-robin meeting of the board, Vinci Class decided to reach out to members and fellow agribusiness operators who were greatly impacted by the catastrophic event. He explained that cluster members were solicited for supplies, and although the response was discouraging at first, the message of love caught on and bore fruits. He also said all families expressed gratitude for the donation. Vinci Class was established in 2010 by the Center for Enterprise Development, Inc. Its purpose is to enhance the agro-processing industry here in SVG. Welcome back. Minister of Education Curtis King has outlined the expected dates for the delivery of results for Vincentian students, setting all CXC administered exams for 2021. Speaking on the radio this morning, the Education Minister outlined how these exams will impact students entering the SVG Community College.
This year, the intention is to have the results released on the 15th of October to the Ministry of Education, and thereafter to the students. And the entire process should be completed by the 18th of October of 2021. Clearly, the reopening of school for 2021 will not be the regular opening date. With regards to the community college, that is something within our control. And as happened last year, the college started back late. What we are hoping this year, it would not have to start that late as it did last year. And that is why we were very determined to get an earlier date for the release of the results.
King also highlighted the agreement that has been made with the University of the West Indies to cater for Vincentian students who will not be penalized for their delayed entry.
With regards to university education, where students are going to the University of the West Indies, we have already had a commitment from the people at the University of the West Indies to allow for students to enter late. And in any case, we do have late entries right now at the University of the West Indies. Okay. They have a late entry date. What we would have to work out, and I think that is what the university is promising us, that we will not be penalized for starting late, because most people have a late fee and so on.
For students wishing to enter universities outside of the region, including the UK and the USA, Minister King acknowledged that they have not yet devised a solution for these individuals. He noted, however, that there is hope for those wishing to enter universities which offer alternative entry time.
I think we would have a challenge is where the students want to go on to universities outside of the region, in North America and Europe and so on. That would be a challenge. We have not yet been able to work out how to deal with that if students want to start, let us say, September in England, for example. That is going to be virtually impossible as we speak now. There's hope, though, in that quite a large number of the universities in the United States of America, they have more than one entry date in terms of when the programs would start. So we are hoping in the case of North America, especially in the United States of America, they would not be that affected. But certainly it is a challenge that we are also looking at.
Also on the radio program today, Minister King provided an update on the various learning hubs and the challenges of operating with COVID-19. The minister said they have noticed what appears to be a decline in the number of COVID-19 cases within the learning hubs. However, there is a serious challenge as it relates to maintaining the COVID-19 protocols at these hubs.
Now, the challenge we have had is to administer schools within this period, because as a volcano, it's easier, I would say, to deal with than say the COVID-19, because the protocols of the volcano are simple, straightforward, and especially because we have seen a next spike. Fortunately, I listen to these reports every day, and I'm a bit happier because the last set of reports seem to be suggesting that from the testing schedule regime that has been going on, we have less and less persons coming down positive. So that augurs well. But I am saying maintaining the protocols while we operate in these hubs is a major challenge.
King outlined how these challenges have affected the operation of the learning hubs, several of which had to temporarily suspend operation.
I've had cases where we had to close learning hubs. I know at one time we had to close those at Annisville, where there were 2 secondary schools. We have had to close all these schools in Beckwith, and there was a next school on the Windward side where we had a suspected case, and again, you had to take the necessary precaution. So those are the challenges. And the thing is, we have to continue to encourage not just the students, not just the teachers, but parents and all other stakeholders, especially those who are coming into contact with other persons at these learning hubs.
The Education Minister noted that with the small spaces at some of the learning hubs, it is difficult to physically distance, making it extremely important for the other protocols to be maintained.
It is challenging to maintain physical distancing. And outside of that, some of our facilities are not that large. So that one we can understand. But we have said it is absolutely necessary in such condition that you take the temperature test, that you sanitize and wash your hands and wear your mask, not just to and from school, but wear your mask even in the classroom.
The minister further pointed out that very few children have so far tested positive for COVID-19, and many have not had to be absent for extended period of time.
Let me put it this way. Those students who have been tested, they have not had a long case of being away outside of the regular isolation period. And in some respects, we have had cases where on the first test you're positive, but by the second test you're no longer.
Got better.
Right? But the major challenge, especially in the case of Beckwith, has been where persons within the home were tested, and as a result, they're being exposed to whether teachers, students using the schools or the hubs. As such, because they're exposed, out of an abundance of precaution, you would ask that these students be isolated.
The minister also noted that under the Education Act, parents' permission has had to be given in order for students to be tested. He highlighted that in instances where there have been positive cases among the student body, parents have encouraged testing, and that there were some instances of hesitancy where there were no positive case. King said as the examination period draws near, the Ministry of Education is making preparations for students who may be COVID-19 positive, as they would not want to place them at a disadvantage. In other news, public servants across SVG have been encouraged to join and actively participate in a trade union. The encouragement comes from Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves at a church service held today to kickstart activities for Public Service Week 2021. The Prime Minister thanked all public servants for the many services they provide, and at the same time reminded them of the importance of their rights as workers.
Emphasizing obligations, both of them. Like a bird, they can't fly on one wing. Their rights and their obligations. But you need to participate actively in your union. Otherwise, what will end up in the union is that you'll have an oligarchy of leaders. And you can't stay on the sideline and then complain. If it's yours, it's yours. And participate in it. Join the union and participate actively in it. I'm talking about a man who believes in trade unions, working people's organizations. And they have to function within the broad interests of their members and of the country.
Noting their reluctance to take the COVID-19 vaccines, PM Gonsalves pleaded with all public servants to get vaccinated.
I know some of you are hesitant about taking the vaccine. I want to advise you strongly to take the vaccine. We are inflicting wounds on ourselves by not using all the scientific tools available to us. We have on the mask, we are sanitized, we do all those things. God gave the scientists the brain to devise the vaccine. There are 193 countries and the United Nations. The leaderships of every one of them support the vaccine as an important tool in the toolbox to fight COVID, to fight this pandemic. All the top medical experts and scientists so advise, including in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The activities for Public Service Week include the recognition of outstanding public servants, and Minister responsible for the public service, Frederick Stevenson, said they applaud all public servants for their hard work, especially those who will be recognized at the awards ceremony.
On Thursday, the 24th June, Public Servants' Year of Service recognition, and this would be held in-house in the several ministries and departments. On Friday, the 25th of June, there'll be a special recognition ceremony for public servants who have spent 35, 30, 25, 20, 15 years in the public service. The public service, the Ministry of the Public Servants, would recognize those public servants for the very hard work.
Public Service Day is on Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021, and will be observed under the theme Resilient Public Servants, Appreciating the Spirit and Strength.